This is MJ. Welcome to another Rider Cast, episode 11, where I'm going to be discussing and talking about, analyzing, reviewing the first two episodes of Kamen Rider Double. Now, I have an interesting relationship with Kamen Rider Double that I won't go into, but suffice it to say, I love 3/4 of the show, and I will ignore talking about the other quarter of the show. But for right now, I'm just going to be talking about the debut, which is what you're here expecting from this. So here we go. Straightforward. I'm going to go into the meta information about Kamen Rider Double. Kamen Rider Double aired from September 6, 2009 to August 29th, 2010. The first episode was written by Riku Sanjo and directed by Ryuta Tasaki, and the second episode was written by Riku Sanjo also, and Ryuta Tasaki happened to direct that one as well. The song, the opening theme, is called WBX, which I can't remember exactly what that means, but I like it. I think it's a pretty cool song. Apparently it's performed by Aya Kamiki, and lyricists we have Fujibayashi Shoko, composers Naruse Shuhei, and there's different versions of who does it, but there's a writership's version, but I think the main one for the show is Kamika Aya with Takuya, because there are two voices. There's a female vocalist and a male vocalist. So that's that information. Let me go ahead and tell you about the suit actors. So Seiji Takaiwa portrayed Kamen Rider Double, of course, and I think for the beginning of the show, really that's all I'm allowed to talk about. Actually, we saw the Taboo Dopant too, and the Taboo Dopant was portrayed by Yuki Ono, who I actually don't know who Yuki Ono is. I haven't heard of that person. Oh, also, we don't know the names of them, but I'm going to tell you right now. The other two Dopants that we see are, well, there's Clay Doll, and Smilodon, which was the saber-tooth one, we saw at the wedding. And Clay Doll's portrayed by Fujita Satoshi, yeah, and Smilodon was portrayed by Yugo Fuji. So that's interesting. I just want to look up real quick Yuki Ono because I don't know what other work they have done, and it looks like let's see, various suit and non-suit roles in tokusatsu. Let's see, Yuki is the only stunt woman to reprise her role in Kamen Rider Decade as Kamen Rider Lark. In fact, she is the only stunt woman to play Kamen Riders in Kamen Rider Decade. She played Taboo Dopant in Kamen Rider Double. Very interesting. I think there's a low number of female suit actors, so that's pretty cool that Taboo got to be one. I actually heard years ago that Taboo was had a male suit actor, not a female suit actor, which is interesting. It was kind of the butt of a joke, but I'm glad to know that wasn't the case. Anyway, it's kind of interesting. Let me see. The premise of Kamen Rider Double is that these two young men, Shotaro Hidari and Philip, become a 2-in-1 detective, and they work in a private detective agency, but mostly what they do with their power to become a 2-in-1 detective is, which means they combine into one body, Shotaro's body, and become, Kamen Rider Double. But they fight Dopants, which are these superpowered beings that use these items called Gaia Memories to power up humans, and they're kind of dealt by a crime family called the Sonozakis, who deal them as if they're drugs or something like that, performance enhancers, you could say. And Philip and Shotaro fight against them to stop them from having, terrible effects on the city, and the Dopants can cause much damage, and these guys are trying to stop them. So my first impressions of the cast are that I do not like Shotaro. He's a poser. I like that Philip calls him half-boiled and properly identifies him as that, and that everybody kind of gives him a hard time for pretending to be more of a hard-boiled manly man than he actually is. And then Philip is an interesting character because he outwardly looks more feminine and looks softer, but he has a harsher outlook on life and kind of pushes Shotaro to make the hard choices that he can't quite. But it's also interesting because there's a dynamic that Shotaro's out in the field and Philip seems to be a recluse, and maybe it's easier for him to be harsh because he's not dealing with people face to face. And I do enjoy, I called Shotaro a poser, and I think the show is clear that that's the case as it stands. But I think that's a beginning place for his character arc, and I like the shape of the arc that is forming, and I like the conflict that's baked into the relationship between him and Philip. I think it's really interesting. And Akiko Narumi also comes along and pushes Shotaro out of his comfort zone or out of his self-delusion because she sees through that he's not hard-boiled, and she joins in calling him. I think she's the one who originates the term. No. Philip does, but she takes it and uses it readily. And she's a good character because she gives pushback to Shotaro's, silliness or his excesses that don't need to be there. And anyway, I like her. I like her energy. I like her being antagonistic. And as far as the chemistry between the three of them, I really enjoy it because there's a very sibling-like feel, and that's kind of something I think I've said a few times in talking about these shows, but I think it's a good thing to do with your characters. It's kind of it's not easy to make to pull off well, but it's easy to set up, and it's probably a good thing to set up because it makes for richer interactions between your characters, and you can kind of do more with them if they have that kind of intimate feeling. And I think they edge towards that between the three of them. Or like friends that have known, like childhood friends almost, where they can all give each other a hard time and stuff. And it's kind of neat that she inserts herself into their lives and is willing to roll with all the craziness that's going on in Fuuto, and that they themselves are involved with. And because they, are working at her dad's company, which, as far as she knows, is still his company, but he's secretly dead. She doesn't know that because Shotaro won't tell her, and Philip won't either for some reason. Anyway, I hope that becomes something later in the show. It really should. I can't believe they didn't talk about it here. It just, it creates there's a tension between them as well as that antagonism, and I like the dynamic that creates in the show. So the Sonozakis as a whole, I'll just give really quick impressions of them because I feel like that's all we can get. Psycho seems determined and driven, and she definitely seems like she's more of a type A person, especially to her sister, and like she's trying to live up, and maybe she's the firstborn and she's trying to take over the family business for her dad. And Wakana seems kind of spoiled and childish, softer. She seems to chafe at her sister, being more advanced, being farther along in the family business than she is, but she seems like she enjoys the benefits of the family business, with the illegal selling of the stuff. And Terubi, the father, Sonozaki, he just seems happy to be there and be evil. He sure likes petting that cat. And I don't know, I can't get a good read on him. He just seems like a generic villain at this point, and it's kind of weird. And then I believe Kirihiko is his name. He joins the family. He becomes a Sonozaki. He's a driven Gaia memory dealer out on the streets, pushing hard and trying to bring himself into the family. And I don't know what else to say about him other than the guy's driven. I think the design element of the show is deceptively simple, but there's a lot to unpack, and I kind of have a lot of details laid out. So we get a glimpse early in the episode of the double driver and the 6 main memories. I guess 3 and 3 are used, 3 on each side, and they create these different forms or whatever that I won't really go into just quite yet. But it looks interesting. I think it's really interesting that, like, in the show, Shotaro puts it on, and then it manifests on Philip, and then Philip puts a stick in, and then it manifests or teleports into Shotaro's. But then, that's the belt. It looks interesting, very techy, and then they have these gadgets like this wristwatch thing that he has that shoots out a web or like a line for him to scale or repel. And then we've got this phone that turns into a bat. So they're little animal gadgets. Kind of reminds me of the disc animals. I think the design on them is pretty solid. He's got a phone that turns into a stag beetle, and you have to like stick a Gaia memory into them to activate them and turn them into their other forms. So that's kind of interesting. Something I don't like, the car, the weird double head shaped car that teleports, or no, that has all the different backs for the motorcycle in it. It's kind of a kludgy mess. I do like the design of the Gaia Memories. We see Kirihiko selling them, and we see them pop up in other instances, and they look really interesting, kind of evil USB sticks, you know? And then he gets a belt when he's, you know, getting married into the family. And I don't know that we see the other Sonozakis have it, but it's like a Sonozaki heirloom type thing. So I think that helps them. They insert their USBs or their Gaia Memories into those instead of how people stick them into their arms or their bodies, like we get to see with the, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who has the magma memory. We see him do that. And then the lady with the T-Rex memory, we also get to see her insert her Gaia memory, and it like goes all the way into her body when she turns into the huge dinosaur thing. And it's interesting because I guess that USB, the Gaia memory port, can get stuck in different places on a person's body, I guess, wherever they choose. And then going into design of the actual Dopants when they show up, I like them. Overall, they're very wild and imaginative. The Magma Dopant in particular looks really neat. I like how it's got this base of like flaming magma and then like cool patches of, you know, cooled lava rock on it as like armor. And then the T-Rex, I don't know, it was ambitious and it was a bold choice. I like the back of it more than I like the giant head, and I almost wonder, like you couldn't really see the giant head closely, so I wonder if they were just kind of tokusatsuing it and cutting around it so you didn't have to see it. In the wedding scene, we get to see all the Sonozakis in their suits. We get to see Clay Doll, which I think is a really interesting look. I know more about it from later in the series, so I won't say anything other than I was a little surprised by, well, yeah, it's an interesting design. It's funny, it has a Wakana's hairdo with the like side buns. It's very reminiscent of that. Terubi Sonozaki, I can't quite tell, but he's got like a huge headdress, and I think he's wearing a cape. It's all very flowy, but they're purposely obscuring it. And I like how they kind of obscured him and Clay Doll with the sheets, or like the sheets of tulle. You know, it's kind of romantic and wedding-like. And then the Smilodon, I really have to wonder. You know, we saw the two daughters and the father, and then Kirihiko, or like a servant or whatever at the house, but we never saw a fourth person, so I wonder who Smilodon could be. It's pretty interesting to me that, you know, maybe there's just bonus family member. And then we don't really get good shots of Taboo. We see Taboo used, I'm not going to say extensively, but in a lot of action. You know, early at the beginning of the episode, which takes place a year before, you know, what's going on now. But we do get some shots of the suit, and it's very interesting. I don't quite understand. It's got like a female, you know, it's a female presenting body. So it's got, you know, a bust, and it has exposed lips, but they like have like stitching coming off of them, and like the hair is like flame. And I don't know if there's like this red and black theme going on top of the pink. So it seems like it's supposed to be very feminine, but like, I don't know, like it's betraying or like twisted or warped or hiding some sort of secret, and I think that's really interesting. Shifting over to the guys and their stuff, I find it interesting that when they're transforming, Shotaro gets lines on his face, kind of similar to the original Kamen Rider. And then the sides that they're able to swap out with the different Gaia Memories give different powers. And like Luna has got these crazy stretchy limbs that he's able to, you know, stretch around and whack people with. And then the base double suit, it looks really cool. I like the design. You know, you've got some contrast with it, and then the different, like, each side has contrast. It has a main color, and then it has like a highlight color, and you've got that like that W-shaped antenna that's very simple. It's like a very simple, rounded, easy to look at design, and I think it's done really well. I think the simplicity lends itself to the form changes that they do. But then you know, the show goes crazy too, because like he swaps out his bike back for, you know, a flying thing, and he fights a giant, you know, the T-Rex turns into this giant trash dinosaur with the head on it. So it's interesting design, and I like it overall. My overall impressions of Kamen Rider Double are that it's trying a little too hard to be mysterious. The show kind of feels like it is Shotaro, or it has his idea of presentation, because he's trying really hard to be cool and mysterious and hard-boiled, and I feel like the show's doing that a little bit too, and I don't like it. I enjoy him being like that, and then like Akiko pushing back against him, and just she brings a lot of fun and energy to the show, whereas he almost kind of brings it down a little bit because he wants to be so serious and, you know, tough and manly. But the designs are really cool. The action was cool. Some of his stuff where he was being emotional and like upfront with his feelings was really endearing. And overall, the show's really intriguing. And so, like I said, the design's really great, and I enjoy that. So overall, the show's really fun, and you know, it's a great start to a Kamen Rider, I would say. You can check out the full playlist of Another Rider Cast. You can see the playlist for MJ Loves Toku as well on the on YouTube. And you want to see more of my work, you can find it at mjmunoz.com. If you want to support me at all, you can go to coffee.com/mjmunoz to do that. And you can also find audio links to the podcasts and reviews that I do up on YouTube over on my blog. In the podcast section, you can also look up Toku Vlogs to see everything else I've done with Tokusatsu, including reviewing, analyzing, discussing the Netflix Ultraman, which is a pretty cool show. Anyway, thank you for spending your time with me. You can like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff to help me out. And until next time, be well.